Bob Solomon's joining us. He's running as a Democrat in Pennsylvania's 18th district. He's got a unique race, and Bob, welcome to Rebel headquarters, and I'm really gonna leave it to you to describe what in the world is going on over there. I get that Tim Murphy is resigning because he tried to get his mistress to get an abortion. That's the Republican there, right? So that means we got a special election, right?
Yes, that's exactly what it means. Last September, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, a stellar example of the value of a free press in a democracy, broke a scandal in which Representative Murphy was revealed to be a participant in a rather shocking bit of hypocrisy. And he resigned in disgrace in fairly short order after the story broke. So under Pennsylvania election law, the governor has scheduled a special election, which is on March 13th. And the Democratic and Republican party establishments both selected candidates through processes that they determined for themselves. The Democratic Party establishment is composed primarily of people who don't believe that a progressive Democrat can win this election, and they chose someone who does not have a record in politics and does not have any established positions on issues, and for the most part is rather clearly avoiding taking positions on matters of policy. And clearly it's the party establishment's view and that of his campaign and his handlers that's really the best approach.
So I want to get to your role in this in a second. So Murphy resigning, special election, that's clear. How did the Democrats decide who was going to run against the Republican in the special election? That's the part I'm a little confused on.
Well, there are Democratic committees on the, I guess you would call it the municipal level, townships, boroughs, and so forth throughout the 18th congressional district. The total number of people who are eligible to serve on these Democratic committees is over 1,400. The number who actually currently fill spots on those committees is 900 some. The number of people who turned up for an endorsement convention, which was held on November 19th, was about 550. Those were people from Democratic committees across the district, and those of us who were in this race did everything that we could within the period of several weeks prior to this endorsement convention to connect with members of Democratic committees. We all went to numerous meetings and candidate forums and spoke to them and talked to them about ourselves and our positions. And then they got together on November 19th and heard 5-minute speeches from each of the candidates, and then engaged in a balloting process that determined what their recommendation to the state Democratic Party was going to be.
So that's a unique situation where there is no primary, the voters don't get to decide, the Democratic delegates decided.
Exactly.
Okay, so Bob, where does that leave you?
Well, it actually leaves me on the same trajectory on which I started when I filed with the FEC. Early last summer, my plan was to seek the Democratic nomination via the primary, which is going to be held in mid-May, and that's still where I'm headed. My campaign is in the process of vigorous fundraising efforts at this point. As you might surmise, it's a grassroots campaign relying on individual donations, and we're working hard on raising money. And then next month, there will be a petition drive to gather signatures on petitions to qualify to be on the ballot in May. Under Pennsylvania election law, there's a period of about 3 weeks for gathering signatures on petitions, so we'll be doing that. And then the plan is to be on the ballot for the Democratic primary in mid-May.
So, by the way, we'll put up the links here if you want to help Bob Solomon, and they'll always be in the description box on YouTube and comment section on Facebook. And so, Bob, you're not in the special election. You're just going forward exactly as you were planning before Murphy resigned to be in the election in November of 2018. And obviously, there's a primary before that. So even if the Democrat picked by the establishment wins, you'll be in a primary against him in June. Is that right?
The primary's in May.
Oh,
yes,
May.
when I filed last summer, my intention was to run in this election as a progressive Democrat. And what I found out during the process throughout 2017 was that I was the one and only person seeking the Democratic nomination as a progressive, and that's still true. The person chosen by the Democratic Party establishment is not a progressive, but there will be someone on the ballot in the primary in May who is a progressive, and you're looking at him.
So, Bob, you're a doctor, and you've been specializing in emergency medicine for 32 years, and you got your progressive platform. The conventional wisdom is that people say, "Oh no, in a district this heavily Republican," and it is. It's favors Republicans by at least 11 points. You should not be as progressive. You should try to get the Republican voters in that district, and that's why the guy running right now, you would argue, is wishy-washy. So what's your thesis for why those voters will vote for a progressive candidate instead?
Well, frankly, I don't necessarily expect people who are registered Republicans who always vote Republican to vote for a progressive Democrat. But the fact is that even though this district is pegged at R+11 by Charlie Cook and Larry Sabato, there are actually 70,000 more registered Democrats than Republicans in the district. So then the question is, well, why is the district voting Republican? And I think it's really pretty simple. First, unfortunately, Democratic voter turnout tends to be not quite up to snuff relative to Republican voter turnout. Second, there are Democrats who have historically been voting in a manner that people such as you and I recognize as being against their self-interest. And I think it's possible to get people who've been voting Republican to understand that when someone who's a regular guy or gal votes Republican, he or she is voting against self-interest, and to come around to an understanding that it's time to stop doing that.
All right, one final question for you, Bob. So you're a doctor for all these decades. Why decide to run for Congress?
Well, I've spent a lot of time over the years engaged in political advocacy, talking to folks on Capitol Hill and elsewhere in DC, people in regulatory agencies about health policy. And I have very strong feelings that have developed over the period of my career that we must stop being the only country in the first world that doesn't have universal health care, that doesn't guarantee access to quality health care to everyone on our soil, just as a matter of being here in the United States. It's time to join the rest of the first world. We should have done it a long time ago, long past time to do it. And I think it's important to have some people on Capitol Hill among the 535 elected members of the House and Senate who really understand our healthcare system and who have expertise in health policy. Right now, the number of people of whom that is true is very tiny. And I think it's time to send somebody to Capitol Hill who can offer that expertise and help to shape the debate over how to reform our absurdly fragmented non-system of financing healthcare in this country.
All right, Bob Solomon running for Congress in Pennsylvania's 18th district. Thank you for joining us at Rebel Headquarters.
Thank you very much for having me on.